Good afternoon, ladies and gents. Thank you for joining us at our side event. Today we will speak about activities of white helmets in the Middle East, especially in Syria. The key speaker today is Maxim Grigoriev, the head of the Foundation for the Study of Democracy, who recently arrived from Syria and ready to present his report on today's topic. We're also going to have with us an independent journalist on Middle East, Vanessa Belay, through video conference. Hi, Vanessa. I hope the signal is good. Our special guest is Rafik Lotef, an independent journalist. First of all, on behalf of those who is permanently working and staying in New York, let me thank our guests for your time and for the opportunity to be here with us. We'll start with opening remarks of Russian permanent representative to the United States, or United Nations, sorry, Vasily Nebenzia. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Am I on? Yeah. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming to this event. I will be brief, in fact, because we have others to speak today. White helmets are being portrayed in the Western media as humanitarian heroes, and all attempts to expose who they really are being presented as a campaign of disinformation. Only yesterday in Washington Post, I read an article on white helmets, which starts with a Russian disinformation campaign has pushed Syria's best-known civilian rescue group, etc. In response, Russia is using state-run bodies and media outlets to mount a brutal and unrelenting disinformation campaign against the organization, including bogus charges that the White Helmets are preparing chemical attacks on Syrian soil. The British-based Bellingcat research group said Tuesday. We know what kind of research British group Bellingcat conducts. The White Helmets are being presented as humanitarian heroes and martyrs, chased and prosecuted by the Syrian government. By the way, White Helmets are not the only humanitarian organization working in Syria. In fact, it is not a humanitarian organization as such. But they are vigorously defended in Western capitals, in fact by their sponsors, because they spend a lot of money on White Helmets. And of course they want to protect their asset. I will not dwell on any further from here, because we have people who are much more knowledgeable on their activities, and I suggest we listen to them. Thank you.
Next speaker, Maxim Grigoriev.
Our organization, the Foundation for the Study of Democracy, addresses human rights issues and analyzes extremist and terrorist ideology across the world. We are the members of the Global Counterterrorism Research Network, established by the United Nations Counterterrorism Committee Executive Directorate, and we are also granted consultative status with the United Nations Economic and Social Council. Personally, I am the author of the book Countering Terrorist Propaganda, which was presented in 2016 at the special meeting of the Security Council Counterterrorism Committee on preventing the exploitation of information and communication technologies for terrorist purposes, about 15 meters from here. While we were gathering data for this book, we were surprised to see hundreds of the White Helmets members' Facebook accounts with Daesh ISIL propaganda. Having discovered this appealing fact, we started to do fact-checking of the White Helmets' activities. I will start with a description of our fact-checking methods. We have interviewed more than 100 eyewitnesses, more than 40 members of the White Helmets, 15 former fighters from illegal armed groups, 50 people in the areas controlled by the illegal armed groups and terrorist groups where the white helmets operated. We also conducted 2 sociological surveys in Aleppo and Dera with the help of volunteers. More than 500 residents were interviewed in each city. In the open sources, the white helmets refer to people who work for them as volunteers. The Oscar-winning movie The White Helmets also starts with the words about a group of volunteers. With more than 40 interviews, which were conducted with the White Helmets members, our fact-checking shows that the White Helmets are anything but a group of volunteers. Almost all its members were not volunteers, but permanent staff members who were paid monthly and regularly received significant food aid. Some organization members were at the same time members of illegal armed groups. We will cover this point a bit later. Some joined for the organization for financial gain, so as to rob those who will need help or to steal from the organization itself. Others became members to save their families from hunger. We also recorded cases of forced membership in the White Helmets when the seized hostages were forced to choose between joining the organization or armed group or face death. The stories of eyewitnesses are on the slide. The structure of the White Helmets differed drastically from any non-governmental organization. It was a parliamentary and centralized structure. Heads of the centers used nicknames to conceal their identities as well as codes in radio contacts, just like military units. Orders from higher ranks were mandatory for all members. Disobedience implied various kinds of punishment, from fines to physical punishment and even execution. You can see the story told by the member of the White Helmets on the slide. He was punished just for leaving without permission of superiors to save his own father, who came under fire. There is an undeniable evidence of a former members of Jaish al-Islam internal security service on the slide. He describes how he delivered written orders of his leaders to the White Helmets. I would like to stress that written orders. We have also collected sufficient evidence that the White Helmets refused to help those who were suspected of not supporting armed groups. Thus, by no means can the White Helmets be called neutral. We have gathered abundant evidence that heads of the White Helmets centers sent their members to prisons and personally threatened them with a gun if they refused to carry out dangerous tasks and orders that were regularly and directly received from terrorist or armed groups. For example, the White Helmets' dangerous but regular work was to fortify combat positions of the fighters. Here you can see the material issued by the White Helmets in which they claim that the Syrian army carried out strikes at Aleppo district Jab al-Quba. An eyewitness, same place. We have interviewed, denied the White Helmets' allegations and says that it was Jabhat al-Nusra fighters who killed the people. On the right side of the slide, there is a report made by the White Helmets in which they stated that the Syrian forces had attacked a place called Jisr al-Hajj in Aleppo. Right there, a member of the White Helmets who participated in the filming, whom you see on the side of the screen, from the left, we are together, told us how fighters had set the garbage on fire, brought the dead people from the morgue, and filmed the stage rescue. Each of the participants got additional $50 for taking part in that particular staged rescue operation. At the photo above, you can see an eyewitness who told us that he had personally seen the stage rescues organized by the White Helmets, as well as the members of the White Helmets covering people with red paint to imitate blood. At the bottom of the slide, there is a photo made by the White Helmets showing crashed cars from the left. The picture next to it is the photo of an eyewitness, a member of the organization, White Helmets, in Sagba, who told us that it had been just an ordinary car accident. However, the White Helmets claimed that it was the Syrian army that had destroyed the vehicles. Such cases are not exceptional. We unveiled hundreds of them during our fact-checking. Numerous eyewitnesses proved that making fake news and organizing stage rescues was a regular part of the White Helmets' activities. Falsification of chemical attacks was an essential part of the White Helmets' activities. On the slide, you can see testimonies of just a few of many dozens of eyewitnesses of such cases. Eyewitnesses reported that they had seen the White Helmets filming children who had been specially brought there to imitate dead bodies. There are also stories about corpses taken from morgues for that particular purpose. Those who we interviewed told us that the barrel bombs they saw didn't receive any damage, though they were supposed to be dropped from several hundreds of meters. Also, eyewitnesses told us that the members of the White Helmets were not wearing gas masks or any protection at all, standing next to what was supposed to be chemical weapons, munitions. Members of the White Helmets report that organization had special groups that arrived at the location of staged rescue beforehand and did necessary preparation, like brought dead bodies, set tires and trash on fire, and used drones for filming. A member of the White Helmets from Sagba says that the White Helmets office for Eastern Ghouta requires fabricated materials every 2 days. The whole process was overseen by Jabhat al-Nusra fighter. Representatives of Syrian NGOs told us that after the withdrawal of fighters from Aleppo, they had talked to people in critical conditions, asking them, "Why did you not receive treatment there?" The locals answered that they had not trusted the White Helmets. People came there for treatment, but only dead bodies came back. The slide shows the words of the head of the nursing staff at Ibn Rushd Hospital in Aleppo. He says he personally examined the body of his acquaintance who had been taken away by the White Helmets. The body was returned with no organs. Our special thanks go to the journalist Vanessa Billy, who first reported about those crimes. On the screen, the top of the slide presents the words of an Aleppo resident who states that people evacuated by the White Helmets often came back with no organs. Children and women were particularly likely to become victims of the White Helmets. With neighbors in Arab cities always in contact with each other, such cases soon became known for the entire district. Therefore, it was easy for us to detect many dozens of such cases in Aleppo. The total number of organ theft crimes related to the White Helmets is probably significantly higher and reach at least several hundreds only in Aleppo. The bottom of the slide shows the words of former member of Ahrar al-Sham armed group who claims that his commander Shadi Kadik, codename Abu Adel al-Halabi, acknowledged the existence of a system for organ theft. A large body of evidence let us make a clear conclusion that the White Helmet Centers were a key element in the system of forced human organs removal. On the screen, you can see several witness testimonies by the White Helmets and former armed groups members. There are some of many dozens of observations on the practice of stealing from those who need help, no matter dead or alive. That was widely spread among the White Helmets. The absolute majority of the victims were women. Members of organization give us details on how members of the White Helmets had robbed apartments and stores. Members of the White Helmets say that their senior ranks had a diverse and comprehensive system of embezzlements and deception of sponsors that included such measures as the falsification of payrolls, forging expenses on fuel and equipment repairs, and selling humanitarian aid. The main characters of the Oscar-winning movie The White Helmets are staff members of the center in Ansari district, Aleppo. Somehow, the movie fails to mention that the White Helmets deployed their center in the third arts school for girls in Aleppo, which they had seized, forcing girls and teachers out of the premises. It was not an exemption. Capturing schools and kindergartens, forcing children and pupils out, and ordering teachers, on pain of death, to send their students to religious schools were the standard practices employed by the White Helmets, which had a devastating impact on the Syrian educational system. Noteworthy is the opinion of an opposition journalist who worked with White Helmets. And here I quote, "Out of 26 centers operating in East Ghouta, 10 were located in schools and 1 in a kindergarten." Here's a story of a man from Aleppo who worked as a fireman for 25 years. He says the Syrian government continued to provide funding, even when his district was occupied by armed groups. He stopped working only after the fire station was seized by the White Helmets. Many staff members of this organization, White Helmets, told us that most of them lacked specific training. Many even didn't finish school, and equipment they captured often stood idle. The White Helmets destroyed an effective national firefighting system and tried to replace it with their own system, aimed at self-promotion, poorly functioning, and staffed with unqualified people. Members of the White Helmets give us a detailed account of how the organization centers work to fortify battle positions of the terrorist groups and illegal armed groups, supplied them with water and food, and evacuated wounded fighters from a front line. Let me refer to one of such testimonies on the screen. And here I quote, "We built earth banks, dug trenches, transported fighters, their weapons and ammunition. For example, we dug trenches and built an earth bank in Masraba and Ashafunia." The slide shows photos of the White Helmets Center and Jaish al-Islam fighters' headquarters. I personally traveled through an underground tunnel connecting two sites, which used to be a part of a system of underground tunnels leading to other facilities of the illegal armed group. On the screen, the White Helmet Center was also an essential part of this Jaish al-Islam's infrastructure. Civilians in their interviews give us full names of dozens of real persons, often their neighbors, who served both for the white helmets and illegal armed groups. We were told that those people had been involved both in white helmets activities and military operations, repressions against civilians, interrogations and assaults of locals, killing of Syrian soldiers. At the top of the screen, you may find a testimony of the man who was assaulted by the white helmets. Often the situation occurred when the whole White Helmet Center was staffed by members of an illegal armed group. The whole White Helmet Center, with its leader from an armed group in a senior position at the center. At the bottom of the screen, you may read a vivid account given by a witness who tried to find a job at one of the White Helmet Centers, but was requested to provide a written recommendation from the Sharia Committee of Jabhat al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria and Lebanon. We also have evidence that many members of the White Helmets covertly underwent military training, including in laying landmines. One of the training centers was operating under the supervision of Jabhat al-Nusra in the area of the granary in the city of Sarakib. Almost all eyewitnesses explicitly told us that members of the White Helmets concealed their connections with armed groups and terrorist groups only when interviewed by the Western media. In all other situations, they not only didn't conceal this, but spoke proudly of being members of armed groups and participating in hostilities. Those facts are beyond doubt. One only has to visit the Facebook pages of members of the White Helmets, where they have posted hundreds of photos with weapons in their hands. Likewise, the Facebook accounts of members of the White Helmets are full of propaganda materials of terrorist groups, including Daesh ISIL and Al-Qaeda, praising Osama bin Laden and other individuals listed by the United Nations as terrorists. In 2018, hundreds of former White Helmets members and their families came to Western countries. Those people know how to kill. They are skilled and experienced in using weapons and follow religious and anti-Western ideology. This threat has grown considerably after Raed Saleh, the White Helmets leader, was denied entry to the United States in 2016, and his visa was cancelled as he was listed as a threat to the US security. In view of these own claims that the White Helmets do not pose threat to Europe and the United States are nothing but politically motivated, and in fact conceal a real and obvious threat to those countries' security. Now I'm going to demonstrate few of more than 100 interviews which we conducted through our survey.
بسام عز الدين 30 عام من بلدة دير عصافير ملقب هادي بن نجد مراسل لقناة أورينت ومساعد في البرنامج السوري الإقليمي كيمونكس التابع إلى وزارة الخارجية الأمريكية. تماما. هلا في عندك شقين، والشق الأول للناس اللي ما بتعرف شو هو الدفاع المدني، ففكرت إنه الدفاع المدني هو عبارة عن إنقاذ مدنيين وإسعاف، فكان هذا شق كتير صغير، يعني كان نسبة كتير قليلة، والباقي كلياته طبعا مشان الأموال. قسمت الغوطة الشرقية إلى قطاعين، سيطر الجيش العربي السوري على قطاع الجنوبي اللي هو متمثل بدير عصافير مليح عز الدين. صار عندنا فقط قطاعين داخل الغوطة الشرقية، اللي هو القطاع الشمالي متمثل بدوما والشيفونية ومنطقة مسرابة، والقطاع الأوسط المتمثل بحرستا، متوسط بعربين، بحموريا، بسبا. فهون كل فصيل مسلح سيطر على المنطقة. يعني فيلق الرحمن ما بيقدر يروح على دوما بيعتقد، وجيش الإسلام ما بيقدر يجي على هي المنطقة. فكل مين سيطر على مؤسسات الدولة بشكل كامل اللي هي موجودة عنده. كان من ضمن السيطرة على هي الأساس سيطروا على مراكز الدفاع المدني. إن كان الفيلق سيطر على مراكز الدفاع المدني الموجودة بالقطاع الأوسط، وإن كان الدفاع المدني أو جيش الإسلام سيطر على مراكز الدفاع المدني اللي موجودة بدوما. أنا بعرف أشخاص كثير كانوا قادات بجيش الإسلام وقادات بفيلق الرحمن صاروا رؤساء مراكز بالدفاع المدني. رح أذكر لك على سبيل المثال أبو صياح من منطقة شيفونية، اسم ما بعرف يعني، هو قيادي بفيلق الرحمن، صار قائد مركز لمنطقة الريحان تقريبا، واستلم هو أبو عمر ريحان. كانوا قادات كتائب، استلموا الخوذ البيضاء، استلموا مركز دفاع. بعرف أبو أحمد كعكة هو من دوما، كان مستلم مراكز الدفاع شاك دوما. بعرف محمد قتادو لحركة أحرار الشام هو من منطقة حرستا. بعرف بشر الحافي وأخوه تقريبا هذول كانوا عناصر بجبهة النصرة وصاروا دفاع مدني. طبعا كمان استلموا مراكز. في أشخاص كثير، يعني إذا بنقعد نحن بنعدد فيهم عددهم طبعا كان داخل الغوطة الشرقية هن 220 عنصر للدفاع المدني. فإذا بنألف فيهم تقريبا بيطلع عندك حوالي مسلح منهم 100 من 100 ل 150 عنصر تقريبا، بين قيادات كانوا بالفصائل المسلحة وبين عناصر، والباقي ما تبقى هو عناصر مدنية. في عنا بداية قطاع دوما كله تابع لجيش الإسلام. مراكز القطاع الأوسط لفيلق الرحمن، قطاع حرستا اللي هو طبعا تابع للقطاع الأوسط، بس لكن منطقة حرستا الوحيدة اللي كانت مستقلة وتابعة لحركة أحرار الشام فجر الأمة، طبعا هي وجبهة النصرة. فنحن عندنا 3 فصائل أساسيين داخل الغوطة الشرقية اللي هن فيلق الرحمن، جيش الإسلام، جبهة النصرة. فهي الفصائل إذا بننخبها كان فيها جزء من جيش الإسلام، جزء من فيلق الرحمن، وجزء قليل من جبهة النصرة. كانوا أعضاء أساسيين هون وهون، بس لكن وقت صار في تساؤلات مشان ما يكذبوا قاموا بفصلهم على العلم قدام العالم، انه فصلهم من جيش الإسلام والفصائل المسلحة ودمجهم تحت الخوذ البيضاء، لكن هن بالأساس يتبعون إلى الفصائل المسلحة، لكن أمام ناظر العينين للعالم هو مفصولين من الفصائل.
حاتم عيون، 31 سنة، بائع النساء، 2014 ل 2017. نهاية بالهيئة الأمنية بالأمن الداخلي، مراسل برقيات بين الأمني والمؤسسات وخاصة الخوذ البيضاء. برقيات مثلا إذا في عندنا أي عمل عسكري ضد النظام أو ضد فصائل موجودة بالغوطة، كنت خبره قبل 2 3 اخذهم برقيات وخبرهم هذا الامر. الخوذ البيضاء مشان يجهزوا حالهم للاسعافات والامور تخديم العمل تبعهم. مثلا وقت بالشهر التاسع 2016 وقت طلعوا على الجبل، قبل فتره كنت خبرهم انه جهزوا حالكم في عمل عسكري ضخم وجهزوا سيارات الاسعاف وكل شيء والطاقم الاسعاف عندكم مشان العمليه. بدأت برقيه ب 24/4 بأبي سلمة مشان كان في الجيش بده يعمل عمل على الفيلة مشان يجهزوا حالهم. ب 27/4 خبرته انه بلش العمل فورا، الوحدات الثقيله تروح هنيك وسيارات الاسعاف لنقل الجرحى وتدشين. انا ومحمد مصاب كنت روح لعنده يعطيني اسماء العناصر الخوذه البيضاء كلهم، اعطيهم لبشير شيخ الداعي مشان اشوف مين اسماء الشخص اللي مشان ما بيناسبهم لهم طالعوا برا الخوذه البيضاء حسب الضروره. هلا اذا في وقت باخذ اياها ورقه إذا دغري مستعجلة وليها شفهية. جيش الإسلام، الهيئة الأمنية، إدارة الأمن الداخلي، بوقع شخص اسمه بشير شيخ الداعي أبو عبد الله. بالخوذة البيضاء كان الشخص اللي يعتبر أمير بجيش الإسلام بنفس الوقت محمد مصاري أبو سلمة. هلا هو كان مستلم الخوذة البيضاء محمد مصاري أبو سلمة، هو اللي بيعطي أوامره لكل شيء خوذة بيضاء اللي بالوطن.
Мы находимся в Алеппо в районе под названием Сахур. И место, где мы находимся, под названием Дуар-Нафура. А беседуем сейчас с Аднаном Исаидом Абдулатифом.
كان هذا المكان عيادة عظمية للطبيب أحمد الخطيب سابقا، ومن بعد ظهور المسلحين في حي الصاخور استولوا عليه الدفاع المدني أهل طوس البيت، وعرفنا منهم عمار شيخو وأخوته صالح وحسين. هن من الدفاع المدني كانوا يقوم بهالمكان لتوزيع الخبز ضمن النهار، ومن بعد الظهر كانوا يعملوا قناصين عن جامع القعقاع تحت باتجاه سليمان الحلبي، كانوا يقوسوا على الجيش العربي السوري.
Мы сейчас находимся с вами в районе Алеппо под названием Джубль-эль-Коббе. И сейчас беседуем с Мухаммадом Саидом Хури ибн Мухаммедом Баракат. Расскажите, что произошло на этой улице?
النهار فوقنا صباحا الساعة 6 صباحا ولا نسمع صوت انفجارات. فأنا بيتي بعد هالمبنى، رقدنا من المبنى لهون، لقينا هون العالم جايين من الشعار من السكري ومن الصالحين ومن الفردوس يطلعوا من هون مشان يروحوا على النظام. فهنيك في مدرسة اسمها مدرسة الصناعة فيها جبهة النصرة، فمنعوهم، الشعب ما قبل المناعة تموا ماشيين. فهن وصلوا من هنيك لهون ولا اجت القذائف على الشعب صار بالارض، اللي مات تم بالارض واللي ما مات راح انهزم ركب، والعالم هون بالاراضي. بعد نص ساعة 3/4 ساعة لحتى اجوا حوزاء البيض، فاجوا صوروا وعافوا كل شيء على حاله وتموا ماشي. طبعا اللي نشر خلوي واللي نشر ذهب واللي نشر بصرات وتموا ماشي، ما اسعفوا لا اي واحد.
Мы сейчас находимся в Алеппо в месте под названием Джиср-аль-Хадж, то есть мост Аль-Хадж. И сейчас около меня бывший активист белых касок, сотрудник белых касок Абдуль-Джабар Бодека. Расскажите, что вы здесь видели и что происходило на этом месте?
أمر من قائد مركز باب النيرة بيبرس مشعل إنه في مجزرة حادثة عدوار جسر الحاج، فجينا نحن واتجهنا على المكان. في قمامة محروقة كلها محروقة، وفي سيارات مكسرة شاعلين، وفي جثث كانوا بالأراضي وملكانات محروقين هون بالمنطقة كلها. فنحن قمنا بالمهمة، وكان في مصورين عمال بيصوروا كتير. قمنا بالمهمة واتجهنا اتجاه المركز خلال 10 دقائق بس، فاتضحنا انه هي مسرحية.
Мы сейчас находимся в Алеппо.
رمضان كردي، العمر 52 سنة، ساكن في مساكن هنانو، أعمل بفوج أطفاء حلب. بأواخر 2013 كنت أنا رئيس مركز فوج أطفاء بهنانو، وعندنا نحن 40 عنصر كنا تابعين للدولة السورية، عم نعمل هنيك القطاع هنيك في هنانو. بهالوقت هذا كان مشكلين ما يسمى الدفاع المدني أو الخوذ البيضاء، مشكلينه جديد يعني جديد. ففي ذات يوم وأنا في الدوام بتفاجأ ب3 شباب معهم شناتي لابتوبات ومعهم أجهزة لاسلكي في إيديهم، فاجوا وقفوا قدام المبنى وصاروا يطلعوا عليه من فوق لتحت هيك يعني يتفحصوا. فسألوا مين المسؤول؟ قالوا لي رفقاتي يعني الشباب زملائي، قالوا لي عم بيسألوا عليه. طلعت أنا، خير أمروا يا شباب. قال والله نحن من الدفاع المدني ونحن مشكلين جديد، بدنا نجي ناخذ المركز هذا نبرك فيه. قلت له أنا هالحديث هذا ما بيجوز، نحن جماعة تابعين للدولة السورية ونحن تحت نظام الحكم الدولي، وانتم جماعه يعني لكم وضع خاص، يعني ما بنحسن نحن ندخلكم على المركز. فنطوا في عبارات يعني ليش ما ليش بصير ما بصير، انت يعني من ايش خايف؟ قلت له انا زلمه عندي خدمه 25 سنه ونحن 40 عنصر هون، اذا انتم تدخلوا لهون معناتها نحن كمان صار علينا مسؤوليه، معناتها نحن اشتبكنا معكم، نحن ما بنشتغل معكم. بعد نهارين ثلاثه فاذا بتفاجئ جاي سيارتين مسلحين من كتائب ابو عماره، سالوا علي، انا كنت بارك في الساحه، قالوا لهم هذا هو، اجوا شالوني. طبعا ولا شك هذا الامر ما في، لانه انا بعد ما اجوا اخذوني دخلوني على مدرسه مسوينا هن سجن ومعتقل ومقر لهم، فنزلوني على النظاره هنيك، وبعد شيء حوالي ساعتين ثلاثه اربعه هيك يعني بالضبط رجعوا طلبوني. وقت اللي طلبوني تفاجأت لقيت رئيس المنظومه تبعتهم تبع هي الخوذ البيضاء او ما يسمى الدفاع المدني موجود في المكتب وقت يحققوا معي. واحد اسمه جابوه اسمه عبد الحميد صبحة، هذا اللي عرضوا علي اشتغل معه، انا يعني ما رضيت وصار هالموضوع وضغطوا علي انا هنيك حتى يعني هانوني، عرفت كيف؟ والثاني كان يتردد لهنيك، انا بعرفه من هذيك الايام، كان يتردد يعني ومعه دائما سجل يعني مكتوب عليه ابو عماره، السجل مكتوب عليه ابو عماره.
أنا كنت بمساكن هنانو في مكان سكني يعني، فسمعت صوت بكاء وصوت استغاثة يعني، فطلعت أنا نزلت من بيتي أشوف إيش هالقصة، فقالوا لي إنه جابوا جثة يعني، فهمت علي؟ فرحت بحكم أجيرة وكذا، فهمت علي؟ بس عم ينقلوه من السيارة، بدأ ننقله من سيارة الخوذة البيضاء لسيارة عادية بيك أب يعني، فهمت علي؟ بس مشان الأهل يشوفوه. فقمنا بحمله أنا ومعي شخص تاني، وزنه كان خفيف كتير كتير وزنه يعني، فهمت علي؟ مبين عليه إنه ما هالعمر هذا، أنا بعرفه من قبل يعني بس ما في هلا يعني، وزنه لا يتجاوز 35 كيلو يعني، فأنا بعرفه من قبل كان يطلع بحدود 70 كيلو، جزء أكثر يعني، كان صحته منيحة يعني. فقمنا بحمله من السيارة، شلون حطيناه بسيارتنا، والسيارة ديك راحت حملت وراحت يعني. فاجوا الاهل بده يشوفوه، زوجته وشلون خواته وكذا، فقمنا بس بفتح الشرشة في اسم الفوف فيه محطوط فيه، واذا فيه مفتوح الجرح طبعا من عظم القص من هون حتى السرة يعني، حتى الخياط يعني اسم العملية، الخياط هي عبارة عن اسمه يعني ما خياط نظامي يعني، تشابك هيك فقط يعني، فهمت علي؟ والبطن ملزوقة للظهر يعني، ما في شيء أحشاء أبدا يعني. فلما شفنا هيك كل الأهل يعني خافوا واستغربوا يعني، إنه كيف هيك يعني صار هيك الوضع هذا يعني وضعه اسمه كان مختلف تماما عن قبل يعني. بس رجعنا غطيناه هيك بعد ما الأهل ودعوه، فهمت شلون؟ وحطوا بالبيك اب واخذوه على المقبره. لمست انا بايدي، فهمت علي؟ بس انا بحكم عملي انه انا فهمت شلون اثبت تمريض، معي دبلوم تمريض، وحكم عملي بالاسم الشافي الحكوميه، فهمت شلون؟ فعندي خبره كثير كويسه، حتى بالعمليات بشتغل انا بالعمليات كثير يعني، فهمت علي؟ إيه لما سويت يعني حتى بعض التشابكات في بس منطقه مفتوحه يعني، تقريبا بس بحدود 20 سم مفتوحه يعني، فقعر جوا يعني ما في شيء مبين جوا، انه ما في شيء، البطن ملزوقه ابدا نهائيا تماما يعني، بس مفتوحه مبينه يعني ما في شيء. انا سمعت كثير بصراحه، بس شوفان انا ما شفت بهيك شيء يعني، بس سمعت كثير حالات يعني، فاما اطفال بيروحوا فهمت شلون، خاصه بالمناطق هذيك كانت يعني، فهمت علي؟ بحكم انه ضليت انا بس هنيك فتره يعني، فتره بحدود السنه يعني، اقل من سنه كمان ضليت هنيك، وبعدها طلعت بلش التهديد يجيني، فهمت شو بس يهددوني انه انت يا بدك تضل معنا او بدك تروح كذا، فتركت هنيك وجبت عيالي وجيت لهون، فهمت شلون على ما. فسمعنا حالات كثير هنيك، فاما اطفال بيروحوا واما بيروحوا جرحى، فهمت علي؟ لما يجوا الوضع مختلف تماما، بس انا شوف انا ما شفت تماما يعني، بيقولوا شيء رايح الكليه، شيء رايح مثلا القلب، شيء رايح هيك شغلات كثير يعني، شلون الاهل.
Thank you, Maxim, for your report. Those videos were very telling also. The next speaker on our list is Vanessa Bile. Vanessa, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Mr. Grigoriev, for such a comprehensive presentation. I am an independent journalist who has spent more than 10 months inside Syria during the conflict, gathering testimony from Syrian civilians who've lived under the occupation of extremist and terrorist groups. The White Helmets make the claim on their website that they are impartial, without affiliations to any political or government agency, and that they serve all sides in the Syrian conflict. I have investigated and monitored this group for more than 4 years, and I can categorically state that their claims of neutrality in the Syrian conflict have no basis in truth. The White Helmets work exclusively with extremist groups, notably Al-Nusra Front, which has now been rebranded as Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. The White Helmets cannot be considered impartial when it is a matter of record that their funding comes from Western and Gulf state governments who have a publicly declared agenda in Syria. UK intelligence operatives were involved in the founding of the White Helmets, which took place not in Syria, but in Turkey and in Jordan. Not only are they embedded with terrorist groups such as Nusra Front, which is Al-Qaeda, they actively collaborate with these groups and have been filmed on a number of occasions participating in brutality against Syrian civilians, dismembering the corpses of Syrian Arab army soldiers, and mopping up after terrorist executions. When the White Helmets commit these atrocities and are found out, they simply issue statements announcing that the offender has been sacked. Russia, as we've heard, has been invariably blamed for discrediting the White Helmets, but the majority of alarming accusations against the group come from the Syrian people. Evidence of the White Helmet affiliation to terrorist groups is also provided via their own social media accounts and videos, which have been, as you've seen, extensively archived and documented. Abu Jaber, the former emir of HTS, and Sheikh Abdullah Muhaizani, designated a terrorist by the US administration, have publicly praised the White Helmets as being soldiers of the revolution. I have recently interviewed White Helmet operatives who were still working in Daraa al-Balad, an area that at that time had remained under control of armed groups during recent reconciliation negotiations with the Syrian government. During the interview, the leader of this White Helmet group, Mohammed al-Mahamid, informed me that many White Helmet groups are led by a Nusra Front or HTS armed members, and they went further to confirm that if a leader of a group is Nusra Front, then all White Helmet members of that group will adhere to the same ideology and be a member of the same group. In every liberated area from Nusra Front-led occupation, I have found White Helmet centers, either next door to Nusra Front or in the same complex, sharing facilities which include prisons and torture chambers. I witnessed this myself in Quneitra, East Aleppo, Eastern Ghouta, where in Sakba, for example, as you've also heard, the White Helmet Center was connected by tunnels to the Jaish al-Islam bomb-making factory. Another example, in September 2018, ground-launched cluster munitions targeted civilians in northern Hama, the Syrian Christian towns of Al-Skelbiye and Mahade. In Mahade, 13 civilians were killed in this attack. I was told that some of these munitions were launched from a place called Madik Citadel, where the White Helmets have their base alongside Jaish al-Islam and Nusra Front. The Netherlands government has recently withdrawn funding from the White Helmets and made a rescue, an NGO established by the former British intelligence founder of the White Helmets, James Le Mesurier, in 2014, to act as an intermediary between the UK Foreign Office and the White Helmets. Funding was withdrawn by the Netherlands government because of the suspicion that financing was being diverted to terrorist entities in Syria. Despite this, the British government has continued financing the White Helmets via Mayday Rescue, who received £1.8 million of British taxpayer contributions in October 2018, in addition to £38 million already given by the UK government to this organisation. Much of this funding appears to be spent on media training and operations. Head of White Helmet Media, Asad Hanna, boasted that his media department was 150 strong on his public CV. That makes the media department for the White Helmets bigger than the combined media departments of all rescue services in the UK, and it gives an idea where the priorities of the White Helmets and their backers lie. Effectively, this enables the White Helmets to function as a primary information source, for example, for Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and Western media, as highlighted in a 2017 UK Foreign Office document. The White Helmets, of course, have been primary producers of the chemical attack narratives in Syria. The alleged Douma chemical attack resulted in the unlawful France, UK, and US bombing of Syria in April 2018. The OPCW interim report confirmed that no trace of nerve agents was found. Quote, no organophosphorus nerve agents or their degradation products were detected either in the environmental samples or in plasma samples from the alleged casualties, unquote. With respect to chlorine, environmental samples were reported to contain chlorinated organic elements, but their origin remains undecided 8 months after the alleged attack. Swedish Doctors for Human Rights investigated the alleged chlorine gas attack in Salmin, March 2015, and found that, quote, the life-saving procedures on the children shown in the White Helmet videos were found to be fake and ultimately performed on dead children, unquote. The Syrian people have unquestionably accused the White Helmets of child abduction, facilitating organ trade, torture, murder, theft, corruption, the withholding of food and humanitarian aid, and they have described the White Helmets as Nusra Front's civil defense. The White Helmets and their backers persist in calling the organization the Syrian Civil Defense, when it is most definitely not. The bona fide Syrian Civil Defense was founded in 1953 in Syria and is the only civil defense to be recognized by the International Civil Defense Organization in Geneva. It has played a truly heroic role in rescuing thousands of conflict-affected civilians. 80% of Syrians are served by the real Syrian Civil Defense in the government-controlled areas. The real Syrian Civil Defense is inclusive of all sects and minorities in Syria, and thus representative of Syrian secular society. The White Helmets are exclusive of such diversity. One example of this sectarian ideology is that Idlib White Helmet members called for the extermination of the Shia Muslim villages of Kafraya and Fua in January 2016. Let me say in conclusion that I sincerely hope my testimony, which is fully evidenced, has given listeners with an open mind some insight into the conduct, sectarian nature, and political role of the so-called White Helmets. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. So, Rafik, now it's your turn.
Ladies and gentlemen, the White Helmets are adopted as a major source of Syrian news. The basis of their work is propaganda purposes and not for neutral humanity purposes, as they afforded in the media. They were created to serve the interests of countries that do not want stability in Syria. Such countries use the White Helmets to pass agendas within the Security Council in order to pressure Syria. If the White Helmets organization is neutral, as they claim, then why do they only receive financial and logistical support from the country that's supporting terrorism in Syria? Although their slogan when they first appeared was, "We do not receive financial support from any countries." And everyone knows that many countries, they pay them millions of dollars. If they are neutral, why do we find many of them carrying weapons alongside terrorism organization specialty al-Nusra Front? And their headquarters were always attached to the terrorism organization. If the humanitarian organization should not be shared with the joys sorrows, victories of the terrorism fighters. It should not raise the flag of al-Nusra or shout Allahu Akbar like al-Nusra. They are taken aside with the al-Nusra front in terrorism and sectarianism. A person who does humanity work does not put his foot on the dead body and on a civilian or military soldier as if taking revenge. But we see the many of members of the white helmets do this. It's truly surprising that despite everything they did, they were nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize and they awarded the Oscar in America. But the question here, if they deserve the honor, why did the US government cancel the visa to the head of the white helmet in Syria, Raed al-Saleh, and prevented him from entering the territory to receive award for unknown reason? Speaking about my work, I have made more than 200 documentary films. The last work is The Veto. I made it with my colleague Vanessa Belli. The film show the time the white helmets were introduced immediately after the fabrication by major media operations fabrication in Syria. By voice and image were exposed. The white helmets were Plan B, people who better lying, presented as an angel of mercy. I call the movie The Veto in honor of the veto decision taken by Russia and China supporting the truth. And here I'd like to say, on behalf of the Syrians, I say thank you to Russia, thank you to China, thank you to Iran, thank you to all who supporting the Syrian people in their crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, the true revolution does not only come out of the mosques, carrying a Wahhabism, Salafi, Takfiri thoughts. It should include university, culture center, and national parties, which did not happen in Syria. At any rate, a country which a mother of 7 of her sons and their father as a martyrs is a country that will never be defeated. As a Syrian citizen, not as a journalist, I realize that without the faith of the Syrian people and the Syrian Arab army, which is made of all the Syrian people, and without the President Bashar al-Assad, Syria would have been a country that spreads terrorism and sectarianism in the whole world. White helmets, I was born in Syria, and I love Syria. So I say to those people who supporting the white helmets and continue to compress against my country, please stop lying, stop killing, stop doing this to my country. You will reach nowhere. You know why? Because in the end, we are the real veto. Thank you. I have the film with me here, and I want to give it to anyone who want it. Anyone who want the film, I'll veto. He can raise his hand, and we will pass it to you. And I authorized everyone to use the film on any channels. This film, it's talking about the fabrication for the major channels in the world, like CNN and Al Jazeera. I hope you see this film and show the film on your channels. Thank you.
Thank you, Rafiq. In conclusion of the official part of our event, we give the floor to Syrian Ambassador, Ambassador Jafari.
Thank you so much, dear Maxime, for moderating this very important side event. I'm going to make very short remarks in order to allow the esteemed audience to ask any questions that might come to their mind. I just wanted to say that I firmly believe that the timing of this event is crucial and most appropriate for all of us as an opportunity to shed light on the wider picture that reflects the history, motives, and circumstances of the emergence of a phenomenon, a bloody phenomenon called the White Helmets. Today you have seen and heard reliable information from independent, neutral experts and eyewitnesses and activists from different nationalities who have witnessed the situation in Syria since the beginning of the terrorist war that my country has suffered over the last 8 years. I call upon you to deeply think in what you have heard and read today and the days before about the real motives behind the establishment of the so-called White Helmets. And to also keep in mind that 429 of its members, 429 of the White Helmets members were recently smuggled in one night to Israel and from there to Jordan and from there to vanish in a number of Western countries, which their governments were financing this suspicious group. These governments will strive to hide the truth so no one can reveal or trace the involvement of the White Helmets in using chemical weapons against the Syrians. The remnants of the White Helmets, those who were stationed in the demilitarized zone in the Syrian-occupied Golan, the White Helmets, elements stationed in the demilitarized zone in the Syrian Golan, had abducted UNDOF elements. They abducted UNDOF elements from the Filipino unit and the Nepal unit. And they escorted them to Jordan. They escorted the United Nations staff members in UNDOF to Jordan, where they were hosted by the Jordanian authorities and offered orange juice. And then they returned to the areas where they are stationed in the Syrian Golan. It's a big scandal. I'm sure you have never heard about it, but this is the truth. The remnants of these White Helmets are presently today in Idlib, along with the terrorists of Al-Nusra Front. Actually, they belong to Al-Nusra Front. They are the same, as you have witnessed. Remember that these people will also vanish when their role ends, after liberating Idlib from terrorism. But what we really fear is that this dirty role will not end before the White Helmets commit with their operators and handlers and partners more crimes against Syrians. I thank you very much and leave it up to the moderator now for question and answers.
Thank you, Ambassador. We still have a little time for a small Q&A session. So who wants to answer? Wants to ask some questions? Pamela Falk, please.
Thank you. It's Pamela Falk from CBS News, and thank you all for your presentations. I'd like to ask both ambassadors what would we've gotten a lot of evidence from the other speakers. Where does the U.S. go now in Syria? What's next? We heard a lot today. I know you were here for a particular mandate about the White Helmets, but what happens to all of this when the U.S. pulls out? Big question, but I know you can handle it.
Thank you, Pamela. I think that question will be appropriate to answer when the U.S. pulls out.
some doubt?
We heard statements and announcements before, and you know pretty well that that after those initial announcements, they changed their mind. It was said yesterday, but we need to see what will happen in reality. So far, I'm not yet sure, because I didn't hear at least any follow-up developments on that. I wouldn't call it even a decision, because I think it was an announcement rather than a decision. I personally think that the pull out of all foreign forces which are in Syria illegally, illegitimately, and are de facto occupying large parts of the country, will only help and facilitate the stabilization that we have been witnessing in Syria, especially in the last year. If that happens, I think that that will be very good. US will fulfill their promise that they pledged some time ago, and I think that will be a good start for our fruitful future cooperation on the credible political process in Syria.
Is there any sense of some kind of amnesty, or what would happen with different opposition groups as the U.S. leaves Syria?
Amnesty by whom and to whom? By the Syrian government. I think that the Syrian government, Ambassador Jafari, is much more well versed on this than myself. But I know that the Syrian government offered amnesty to all those who would like to lay their arms down and return back to civic ways, so to say. And I think the process is going on, and it will be only it will only go faster if we see the foreign presence out of Syria. If we finally see the separation and delineation between the terrorist groups and the so-called moderate opposition, because we know that in Syria, in particular in Idlib, there is a large concentration of foreign terrorist fighters who have nowhere to go, and they have no perspective for themselves unless they betray themselves to authorities or move elsewhere. And in fact, they constitute a major problem in how to solve the Idlib rebus, I would call it, because they are the main stumbling block on solving the situation. If the foreign terrorist fighters, who comprise and constitute a large part of the terrorist groups there, would not be there, I think the question would have been solved much more easier, because the local Syrian population that was involved in armed groups, for them it would be much easier than to reintegrate.
Thank you.
Nizar Aboud, our Mayadeen Television. My question to you, Mr. Ambassador, why this material is not presented to Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International and other human rights organizations, and how are you dealing with such material with regard to the reports of the United Nations regarding human rights and the situation in Syria?
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for this very important question. Firstly, and here I'm going to surprise you a little bit, I have handed over on behalf of my government since March 2011 750 official letters to both the Secretary General, Security Council, subcommittees of the Security Council dealing with combating terrorism, as well as other UN bodies. 750 official letters full of information related to such kind of terrorist groups, and as well as other topics, of course. So we did our homework very well. We did it very well, but there is a kind of boycott, if I may say so, by the media, as well as by some representatives in the Security Council. Because, honestly speaking, ISIS, Al-Nusra Front, the White Helmets are not anymore, by no means, secret. They are there. Everybody knows everything about ISIS, everything about Al-Nusra Front, and everything about the White Helmets. So there is no secret anymore, and no reason anymore for anybody to justify or to condone or to ignore the presence of these bloody terrorist organizations. Secondly, the issue for us is not about alarming the Human Rights Watch and the other organizations dealing with the human rights. The issue for us is about combating terrorism. We are not seeking propaganda. We are seeking an international, genuine cooperation while combating terrorism. This event is not about propaganda. This event is about putting you in the atmosphere, in the environment of what these organizations did to the Syrian people. So we are kindly requesting you, and very candidly actually, to share this information with what we call the public opinion, your own public opinion, so that the truth and nothing but the truth will be reflected in your comments. If you heard, and I am sure many of you have heard this story, yesterday, a British newspapers reported that one German reporter had faked news with regard what was going on in Syria. He invented the news in his own comments and reports. And these faked news were published by these German newspapers for years. And finally, they discovered that it's about fake news. And the guy was fired and now held accountable for further investigation. So please let us focus on our topic today. We were invited by the organizers to this event because we think, all of us, we think that this is a very serious matter and that it is time to stop calling these terrorists civil defense. They are not. They kidnapped UNDOF forces in the Syrian Golan, United Nations staff members. And there, after that, in the darkness of a night, they have vanished in some capitals in Paris, Germany, London, and Washington, and Canada, sorry. Because they like these terrorists. They created them, and now they are hosting them. And they will regret. These countries will regret. Sooner or later, they will regret, because they are hosting criminals. Thank you so much.
Can I add something to that? I agree with the author of the article that I quoted today, by name of Louisa Lovelock, that the disinformation war is going in the world. We differ with her who is the victim and who is the perpetrator. Syria is a battlefield of the disinformation war. Russia is as well. And white helmets is an extremely inconvenient subject for their co-sponsors. Ambassador Jafari referred to them being relocated to Western countries through Israel and Jordan, an overnight operation. but he didn't mention that before they were relocated further to the countries of their major sponsorship, which are Western countries, when they screened those figures, when they looked at them, initially they refused to accept them because they learned finally who they really were, and very reluctantly, only under pressure, they finally accepted those 400-something members into their countries of repatriation for them. But as Ambassador Jafari said, on the way they realized who they were accepting as new members of their societies. Ambassador Jafari referred to White Helmets as a suspicious organization. I would strongly disagree with him. Not very often that we disagree. This is not a suspicious organization. It's a clearly criminal organization. It's criminal organization that deserves to be on the UN designated terrorist list, only unless their sponsors would allow it, but they will never allow it because they share the responsibility for giving birth to them, for supporting them, for using them to hide truths about what was and is still happening in Syria. I hope that today's event, which is indeed timely, would open eyes more to those who were simply unaware about what White Helmets are doing in Syria, because to a large extent it's a forbidden subject. Our partners don't like to discuss White Helmets. Anytime we raise that in the Security Council and say that we have clear evidence of their activities, they hide behind the slogan that they are heroic humanitarian workers. This is blatant Russian propaganda. And I'm not sure that even if we give them the film that Riyad was referring to, or the materials that Maxim was presenting today, they would be willing to read it, because naked truth is not so pleasant and so not so nice. And I'm not sure that they will accept it, and they will recognize who those who are they covering and sponsoring really are.
Who else would like to raise the question? Speak to the mic, please.
Hi. Thank you, ambassadors, for this event. I had a question on the broader subject of foreign terrorist fighters. As the war in Syria winds down, do you have any advice for countries dealing with the return of foreign terrorist fighters? And could this potentially create a destabilizing effect in, say, their countries of origin, maybe in Europe or in the broader Middle East? Thank you.
There is a principle that we maintain on terrorists in general, which is betray and prosecute. There are attempts and there is a lot of dialogue on that issue within the UN, including on approaches on counterterrorism. We cannot accept approaches that would allow to justify terrorists, because it is detrimental to their countries of origin themselves, who sometimes stay by their side, trying to look humane in the whole process. I think that before you do the humane thing, first you have to call a spade a spade. You have to identify a terrorist, bring him to justice, make him serve his sentence, and then see what happens. On the foreign terrorist fighters, there is and that again I alluded to it to the problem within the Syrian context, because it's a huge problem there. As Ambassador Jafari spoke today in the Council, he was referring to the names of the major players of the so-called moderate Syrian opposition, and he quoted names of all these people who were Al-Kanadi,
Canadian, the French, the Americans, the Chinese,
etc., etc. The list goes on. What to do with them? I mean, they really have nowhere to go. They came there. They have no welcome in the countries of their origin, and so they will probably find their deaths there, because they have no way out of that situation. There is a Persian proverb which maybe answers to a question. Bad property belongs to the owner. So bad property, who are the foreign terrorist fighters who find themselves in Syria today, should find their trial, which they deserve, in the countries of their origin. Who should prosecute them?
Thank you. Are there more questions?
Supplementary remarks. This is a very pertinent and important question, actually. When we started talking about these foreign fighters, which is a very polite term, as you know, this is very diplomatic, and diplomacy is wrong sometimes. These people are terrorists by nature, by definition. But, I mean, when we started talking about these terrorists called, wrongly speaking, foreign fighters, there was a total denial in the Security Council by the Westerners. Total denial. And they accused us of lying all the way. Every time we raised our concern with regard to the presence of foreign fighters in Syria, there was a total denial. Until some of these terrorists return to where they came from: Paris, Rome, Belgium, London, Canada, Florida, etc., and started making terrorist activities. Then they woke up. They woke up to acknowledge that, well, this is true, what the Syrians are saying, what the Russians are saying, what the Chinese are saying, what the Bolivians are saying, what the Kazakhstanis are saying, what the Ethiopians are saying. Well, this is true. There are foreign fighters in Syria. You see this contradiction? What is the reason behind this contradiction in their behavior? The behavior of those governments called permanent members in the Security Council. The reason is very simple. The idea was, at the beginning, when they created these monsters, the basic idea was, you know what? Let us get rid of this garbage in our societies by sending them to Syria. Provided that they will not return. They will kill Syrians and be killed by the Syrians. But they never thought that these monsters would go back to where they came from. So when they woke up because the problem arrived to their own capitals. And that was not on their agenda when they created these monsters.
I want to add two sentences that the same situation was about 30 years ago when Western media prizes Osama bin Laden as a freedom fighter and perfect man. And then everybody saw the situation with 9/11. So I hope this will not repeat with the people from white helmets, but I think that they are clear threat because those people, they are hundreds in Western countries. They know how to kill and they have special skills. They know how to use weapons and they are anti-Western. They are religious extremists, most of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Maxim. Thank you, ambassadors. I think we have a next meeting here in 10 minutes, so unfortunately we have to conclude. Thanks everybody. We'll invite Maxim next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.